Aloha, friends and family. Welcome back to this week's episode of the Embodied Healing Self. So, I'm super excited this week to share with you a wonderful guest whom I found listening to one of my favorite podcasts, The Wellness Force with Josh Trent. I have with me this week Charles Clay. So, welcome, Charles. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Charles is an inner peace coach. He's a healer, he's a neurokinetic therapist. So, I'm excited to hear exactly what that means.
Mhm.
You do men's work, you actually work with men and women, but you do retreats, you do one on one coaching, you have the laser focus method, you have the inner peace project, all kinds of really yummy, juicy conversations to get into today. So I'm super excited. And you're a father of a beautiful daughter, Sophia,
Yes,
right?
the
And
best initiation.
that is where we begin, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
that is
absolutely.
that is just the reminder of why we want time freedom, why we want to heal, why we want to create inner peace, right? It's such a beautiful co-creation. And how old is Sophia?
She's 10 and a half months. So such a beautiful little angel in human form, such a great teacher already. They're just straight from source and here having such an incredible experience. And yeah, she inspires me more than ever to continue taking my own medicine and my own inner peace journey. So it's exciting.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And if you, for the listeners, if you go to Charles's website or his Instagram, you will get to see his beautiful family, which I love that you incorporate and share with everyone to see. So, what I'm really excited to dive into is a couple of things today. Two of the things that I know that you're working on, and some of the language that we share is what really grabbed me was this idea of energetic sovereignty
Hmm.
and your use of the laser focus method. And then the other part to that is the work that you do with one-on-one clients, which is this inner peace process,
Yep.
which, I mean, who doesn't want more inner peace, more time freedom, more intention in their lives? um, One of the things that you shared, one of the quotes that really got to me when I was listening to you speak with Josh, is this idea that energetic sovereignty is fully embodying each and every cell. And what came through to me is that in the world of being a coach or a healer, we hold the space for a lot of stuff to come up. And energetic sovereignty and fully embodying each and every cell sounds amazing and glorious, but it's actually also the other stuff too, like the subconscious and the shadow work and the releasing of stored up pain that can manifest in our bodies. So I want to invite you to share with me a little bit about how you came into becoming an inner peace coach, what that journey was like, how you came to studying neurokinetic therapy, and
Hmm.
what got you to do the work that you do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've always had a fascination with the greatest technology on the planet, these human bodies. It's not the smartphones and the computers, it's this technology that we get to call home for such a short time. So I've always been fascinated. So my degree is in kinesiology from Washington State. And right out of college, got into fitness and training and into health coaching. And along that path, there was a period where I remember just making the conscious choice as a teenager to basically shut off my emotions. Like just say, I control my emotions from here on out, and I no longer want to be a loose cannon and reacting to everything. And that served me to a degree until over time, it was like all these tight spots in my body kept showing up and like common injuries that were reoccurring a lot, and it just felt very constrictive in my body. It was like these issues in my tissues that I wasn't dealing with,
Yeah.
the emotional aspect. And so I was so science minded then, this is Charles 1.0. I had to see the proof. And so I went to physical therapists, I went to, even chiropractors and like whatever body work I could find to release some of the tension and tightness in my body. And nothing seemed to work for, extended period of time until, of course, it's always the last place we look, right? And the emotional capacity. And so I had to confront the fact that I was avoiding a lot of emotions that became very painful in my body. Um, and I was avoiding them with all kinds of coping mechanisms, right? Sex, drugs, rock and roll, like whatever felt more pleasurable than experiencing what I was going through at that time. And so, the universe gives you a little feather. It's like, hey, you might want to pay attention and make a shift here, and I didn't listen to that back then. And then you get hit with like a brick, you're like, wow, I'm really having to deal with some consequences from those choices, and this doesn't feel good. And then I try to make some changes, but nothing really stuck. So then it was like getting hit by a Mack truck. And that for me was when I was up snowboarding about 10 years ago up in Mammoth, and it was a complete blizzard, like full on whiteout. It was like snow was going every which direction. And there was a couple of us up there. The lifts had shut down. And so it was almost like we had the mountain to ourselves, but you could barely see anything in front of you. So we were just staying low, went halfway down the mountain. And next thing I know, I went off a jump that I didn't know was there. And I found myself in midair. And it was one of those moments where everything kind of slows down, but I didn't know where the landing was or which way was up and down. So I tensed up and I smashed my back really bad, my hips, vertebrae. And I remember that was the most intense pain that I'd physically experienced to date. And so here I was, my friends had just gone down, and I'm all by myself on this mountain. And my phone doesn't work. I'm like yelling for help. And I had to really channel my inner Spartan warrior in that moment just to figure out a way to get down the mountain in excruciating pain. And then I went and saw these doctors that were telling me, showing me x-rays, and that I needed surgery as soon as possible, or I might never move the same again. And that was really tough to hear, considering how much I love this body. And so in that fight or flight state, I was still able to access my intuition and decide that I'm going to try every means necessary to heal this naturally. And so I, against doctor's orders, went on my self-healing journey. And that's when I had to, I was in so much pain, I could barely crawl to the bathroom. That's how bad it was. And so I finally had to sit and surrender to a lot of these emotions that became stuck in my body. Fear of never being able to move the same again, shame because I couldn't even stand up straight, let alone get to work, and even grief from some loss, and really just allowed like to go to the depths of a lot of these heavy emotions that I was avoiding for so long. And in that came this, as that passed, there's like this deep clarity. And I set the intention as I did a meditation to being open to receive all answers to healing this naturally. And in that meditation, during that, literally a friend I hadn't talked to in 2 years sent me a text saying, hey, I heard your back's pretty messed up. You should check out Neurokinetic Therapy. And this is the work of David Weinstock. And so that took me down this rabbit hole of really connecting a lot of dots for me with my background in kinesiology and a deeper understanding of how everything's interconnected and through the kinetic chain. And so it resonated with me. And I went and got my first session from one of his top students that was in San Diego. And I was blown away by the experience. And, I walked in there looking like a mess. I was like, hips were over to the left, upper body was to the right. I looked like Shakira stuck in a mid-hip dance move. And
Well, then you were looking pretty good.
yeah, right. And that was representative of how out of alignment I was with my purpose at that time.
Wow.
Right? The body's a great, it's a representation of our subconscious. So she got me on the table and tested my glutes and some other muscle groups, and my glutes weren't firing. And so she had me clench my jaw and then retested the glutes, and all of a sudden they came back online. And I was like, wait a minute. And so then she showed me how to release my jaw and how to activate the glutes again, and then restoring that connection and that neurological functioning again helped realign. And by the time we did that for a couple other compensation patterns, I got off the table and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in alignment again. I can move. And I gave her a big hug, and I decided that I was going to continue seeing her every week, even though I was getting so much better, just to learn. And was really called to that practice. And so I ended up taking all of David Weinstock's courses and became a neurokinetic therapist. And it was this huge gift that came from one of my deepest challenges, and understanding that pain is a great teacher. And it's basically like a check engine light, for like in your car, how long are you going to go with the check engine light on before you make a change, before you shift something in your life? And so for me, it took that Mack truck, that accident, to discover these gifts. And so recognizing that every challenge throughout my life has yielded these amazing gifts. And I feel the same way about each emotion that we tend to avoid. Even grief. I feel like our society is terrible at dealing with grief, and the loss of either someone or something, or even our own selves moving into a new season of life and expansion. So that deserves an honoring, that deserves a ceremony as well. And so that's been really cool to get to help people, healing their back pain and healing their neck pain and hips and things that they're looking and facing surgery. And now they've tried everything they thought they knew of, and they come see me, and we get to give them a mind body tune up, and all of a sudden they're empowered to heal themselves, and they feel alignment in one session. And super, it's really exciting, like that level of hands-on work. And that led me into a deeper dive with emotional intelligence as well, because I started seeing a lot of common denominators with people, especially entrepreneurs. Happy to dive into that too.
Yeah, we may go there.
Mhm.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking, if you have a limiting belief around self-worth or self-doubt, and you want to be an entrepreneur, you will meet every single
Oh
part
yeah.
of that at the head, right? It always makes me curious when I see the people who have chosen this path.
Mhm.
There's so much that you just shared, and there's so much to unpack there. Um, Thank you for sharing your story, and uh, thank you for being the Mack truck so that you
Mhm.
could learn this. I keep looking down because I want to say it correctly, but this neurokinetic, because I haven't heard of this before. And
Yeah.
um, I'm I can just I think most people think of a holistic approach to realigning as like the chiropractor would be like a holistic approach, or acupuncture. And I know that I had a really good massage therapist that, when I had a really difficult time in my life, I dislocated my shoulder snowboarding one time. But
Mhm.
when I had this thing happening in my life where it was a fear of losing control, my right shoulder would constantly tense up. So he just invited me to start speaking about what I was afraid of losing control,
Mhm.
which my Mack truck experience was a near death experience with the birth of my daughter. I had pregnancy induced liver
Mhm.
failure, which caused frozen shoulder because my liver was swollen. So I was like this. So anytime I have a fear of losing control in my life, my shoulder tenses up. And it was
Mhm.
just the invitation of talking about it while he was working with me that I was like, oh, like it released so much
Mhm.
easier than him just, massaging it, or, just working on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and I find that, there are those experiences. I like to call them soul upgrades. And
Mhm.
you talked about your body was representing yourself being out of alignment. For me, I very much live in the energy world, and I think of like my Mack truck experience, or I think of it as like our soul comes in with this energetic frequency, this energetic imprint that our soul has that we come up with, that's our agreement. And then we have all these experiences, trauma, mom and dad injuries, that take us out of alignment from our energetic
Mhm.
signature or frequency. And then the soul upgrade or Mack truck or breakdown in whatever it is, whether it's your marriage or finances or your job or whatever breakdown you experience, is the invitation to come back into alignment.
Yep.
um yeah. But what I'm really noticing is that you started out by saying that you were a health coach and you did fitness.
Mhm.
And so that was also my path too. I started out with health coaching and fitness, and then yoga, meditation, energy work, soul work. So you had the tools and the methods to be healthy, right?
Mhm.
But then there was this experience that, what I'm hearing you say, all of a sudden you may not walk the same. And I'm imagining like you probably lived and valued yourself as being strong and healthy and taking care of yourself. And then there's this experience where all of a sudden it's beyond your control. Like health coaching is sort of not enough at this point in time. Like
Right.
there's these emotions that are coming up that need to be healed. And you said, what really grabbed me is you started talking about, you noticed all of these emotions that needed to be released because you shared that when you were younger, you didn't have the tools to, there was a period of time where you didn't know how to express your emotions in maybe a healthy way. And I'm imagining that i'm I'm also just want to give space and compassion to the truth that you're a man, and that it's maybe more difficult. um Maybe there's some cultural conditioning that has made it more difficult, maybe not. I think women have different experiences on expressing emotions. What did you notice? What was really coming up for you around those emotions, where there was something that clicked, where you're like, this there must have been, I'm imagining there was a moment where you noticed there was an emotion stored in your body and then you felt it release. Do you
Mhm.
remember that moment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember many moments. That one specifically was first anger. And then as I allowed that to move through and gain some lessons and blessings in that, then it was sadness underneath that. And so as I finally had the courage to sit with anger, and instead of avoiding it or going to the fridge or hopping on Netflix and escaping it, like all these band-aids that the mind provides when it notices that something's uncomfortable in our body, it's always like these programs of like, oh, this will keep you safe. It's like short-term solutions, right, to avoiding what's really going on. And I usually would just condition patterning resort to those, like have a drink and numb it out or whatever. Go on Facebook and get a dopamine hit to not feel this. And so this was an opportunity to finally sit with myself and deep dive into anger, and realizing that, wow, what a fierce, powerful energy. That anger, like I actually found a level of admiration. Energy is information. And so this information that was being stored in me, that wanted to be released, acknowledged, and expanded, was that, this is great, a really powerful energy for noticing where I'm not creating boundaries or fully sharing, my needs, and anywhere that
Mm.
there's like a need for change in my life. Like if I'm no longer willing to tolerate something, anger, is a great way to show that information of like, okay, I'm no longer tolerating this. I'm creating these boundaries. And so it's been a really, that was a huge realization that wow, there's these golden nuggets, these like silver and golden linings in the depths of these heavy emotions that I've been avoiding that kind of made me almost excited about, or at least put on the lens of curiosity as I allowed myself to feel more. So I went from this, Charles 1.0 of like always trying to feel better, right? And I had all these biohacks and amazing ways to like feel better temporarily. And yet I was kind of like hitting a ceiling on the level of joy and
Mm,
pleasure and bliss and expansion that I could experience because I wasn't willing to go to the depths of heavy emotions. So as I did and gain these golden nuggets, these lessons, it was like it opened up this new level of joy and bliss and pleasure on the other end of the spectrum that I realized, we're here to experience the full spectrum. Like, why are we trying to avoid any of it when it's all temporary, And so that helped me shift my belief of like, I always need to feel better to just allowing myself to feel more. And the
mm,
irony is that by allowing myself to feel more, I ended up feeling better and like
yeah.
establishing a sense of like, wow, this is my natural state of being, inner peace and joy and unconditional love. And so when things get in the way of that, when we fall out of alignment, that's okay too. It's okay to forget as long as we remember. And so when we fall out of alignment, there's something to learn. There's something to gain from that. When we're faced with challenges, that's what allows for our highest growth. And so I just found a new appreciation for all those challenges and all those times that I've fallen out of alignment. And now it's like, because I've studied subtle energy body and because I know my sovereignty as home base, then anything, it's like so much easier to pay attention to the feathers, of when the little misalignments and like, oh, okay, I understand. Like I should slow down. Like I get to slow down. And so I pay attention to those now instead of the Mac trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really powerful actually. Not everybody's going to get to the Mac truck,
Hmm.
and that's because some will, it's not their path, or they're avoiding enough, or I don't know, there's other distractions, and hopefully others won't get there because they're listening to us talk about listening to the feathers before the Mac truck
Yep.
comes. Um when you talk about energetic sovereignty, what does that mean to you? And how does that show up in your life now?
Yeah, that's claiming full energetic sovereignty is in full governance of the energy in every single cell of your body as your pure light energy, meaning there's no space for anything else. And that is home base. That's like the simplest term to describe it. And a lot of us don't realize like how much we're courting with other people and taking on others' energy and so that subtlety of just noticing like where we've been taking on others' energy. And this is something that I also learned the hard way. I was a huge, considered myself, wore the badge of an empath, and so as I got into healing and helping others heal themselves, I had this like heroic unconscious healer, syndrome of like trying to take on their pain, right? And
Mm.
so a lot of times, because my second chakra was so open and like feeling their empathy, and like instead of staying on my high vibration, I would like come down to meet them at theirs. And then I'm taking on this energy at the time I didn't realize, and then wondering why I was getting like stomach aches after the sessions or feeling super fatigued and drained. And so it was that contrast that helped me realize and begin going down the path of learning about subtle energy body and how to release and even control, like basically dial down my second chakra and open my fourth so that I can choose compassion over empathy any day. any
Mm.
moment, because then I can like really hold sacred space from, not needing to change someone, not needing to give them advice, or just simply witnessing and sharing unconditional love with them as they're having their experience, so that they can gain those golden lessons from their pain instead of me trying to take it on. And so that was a huge evolution in my learning and now my teachings that I help others with, and noticing when we're taking others' energy on, and just energetic sovereignty is like a consistent energetic hygiene, of really grounding out that which no longer serves us, the energy we've been taking on that's not ours. Having a practice for that allows us to come back to home base, where we're fully embodied with our life force energy filling each and every cell of our being and out into our auric field. And then we can show up with a full cup with a lot more to share, instead of running around trying to help others from an empty cup and taking on others' energy.
Yeah, well, and that what this is going to lead us into is it creates more space for that creator consciousness
Mhm.
that I want to get into. And I want to thank you for sharing that about the empath. I had a similar experience, to where it was physically making me unwell. And it's funny how the ego can get caught up in that healer of being an
Oh
empath.
yeah.
And you said wearing that badge of the empath. And in myself, what I discovered was two things. One, it was easier to be in somebody else's pain than my own. This was a
Hmm.
couple years ago. And the second was that I actually really deeply wanted to be seen and felt the way that I could experience others. And what I didn't realize is that I was clairvoyant. I had forgotten. And so the practice became witnessing and feeling and then transmuting it up to the vision and witnessing it rather than feeling it. And this is sort of an intuitive development process or method that I think that if we do, like you've talked about the core wound, the deep wound work, that's what I had to go to, remembering of when I was a kid and feeling like I wasn't seen or heard or felt ever by my
Hmm.
parents or understood, understanding where that came from, because I had that subconscious belief. I was really wanting to be seen or heard or felt deeply. And because I didn't felt I was, then I was almost being invasive to other people's energy and then experiencing them. So I love that you shared that, because I know that many coaches or healers, when they're new on their journey, they step into this awareness and they can feel that empathy, and transmuting that empathy into compassion and allowing them to have their experiences empowering for them, and we no longer make it about us. So that was a beautiful share.
Yeah.
And it creates space for more of what you talk about, creator consciousness versus consumer consciousness. And I love that you shared that, and it's coming together now, because I'm thinking that when it feels really heavy to be an empath, to take on all of this, that we're experiencing all around us. And this was very, very, very prominent over the past year, 2020. Very different realities, very different experiences, very challenging for some people, very heavy for some people, very abundant and light for other people.
Hmm.
And I'm feeling the energy around this is being connected to this creator consciousness, versus where we actually create space by releasing what no longer serves us,
Yep.
versus this consumer consciousness. So I'm wondering what that looks like for you. What does that mean for you? And how do we know where we are in the energy of both of those different types of consciousness?
Yeah, absolutely. Just beginning, I think it's helpful to recognize the conditioning that we've all adopted through our lives of how important it is to consume, right? Like, I mean, it goes all the way back to Freud, when he figured out the psychology of like human needs, right? And then that became manipulated into marketing as like, well, you're broken, or you need to be fixed, and you need this thing externally to fix you. And so it's this endless like seeking externally for what's already available within us. And so and that's indoctrinated early on in our lives, the conditioning to consume, right? And so that's like, for my example was, I didn't want to feel these uncomfortable feelings. And so I would resort to all these other things, drinking, smoking cannabis, pleasure seeking, going to the fridge, anything to consume externally to not feel what's going on internally. And so a lot of people, a common one is doing. The doers out there of like,
Yes.
I don't like the mind notices the body is experiencing something uncomfortable. And it's like, I just gotta keep going, just keep going, keep hustling, just keep working. And then I don't have to feel this because I'm staying productive. Right. I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially entrepreneurs. And then when you take a break and you like give yourself permission to rest finally, it's like sometimes it can be a volcano of emotions that has just been like wanting to be released from your system, and it can be a little overwhelming. And so that energetic hygiene is very powerful for that, of just like taking time to slow things down, using great tools like the one that's right under our nose, breath. And that allows us to slow things down and notice the attachment to consuming externally, right? And then noticing that every time we're seeking something externally to fill a void or to avoid something internally, then we're missing out on the opportunity for long-term fulfillment. It's like reaching for the short-term fix is preventing us from the long-term fulfillment, which comes from stepping into the remembrance that we are creators. We're very powerful creators. And this can be as simple as creating art, to creating an amazing experience, to creating a new book, to just creating fun and joy in your experience of life. And so we tend to, because of the conditioning, reach externally for a pill or continue doing to try, and that's keeping us from stepping into that creator consciousness, which allows us to you're on that path to long-term fulfillment when you're creating like an apple tree, and it's like, I just create apples. There's no need. I don't worry about who eats them. I don't worry about like
Yeah.
what happens to the apples. It's just creating to enjoy the process of creating. And so that is
Yeah.
available, and that's a deep remembrance that all of us are here, and so many great ideas and gifts end up in the graveyard, because people give into the conditioning of external consuming over stepping into creator consciousness and moving through the resistance of sharing something great with the world. And so I actually use fear to my benefit in that realm where, see the fear of like, oh my gosh, how are people going to receive this new book that I just co-authored? Or how are people going to receive this new program? And I noticed those fears come up, and that's minor compared to my fear of going, of leaving this human experience without sharing all the creations that I have in here, all the gifts that I have to share while I'm here. Having regret on my deathbed is like a big fear. And so I would rather, dance with fear and move through the resistance of sharing as many great ideas come through me than to continue consuming short-term fulfillment that
Mm.
leads to a downward spiral, as we know. And when you're on that path of deep fulfillment, when you're creating and it just lights you up. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a masterpiece that's going to go on your wall, or if you're just allowing yourself to get messy and have fun in the flow state of creation. And that's when you're on that path of following your highest excitement. And that's what leads to long-term fulfillment in my experience. And so I love encouraging others to experience more of that creator consciousness, to choose that. And that's why I created the laser focus method. It's a super simple and profound method for cutting through distractions and really up leveling your level of focus, and being able to get more done in less time, so that you carve out more space to create the things that really light you up, and doing more of the things that you love, because that's what helps us access our zone of genius, right?
Yeah.
We're out in nature, enjoying a walk. You're getting that contralateral movement. The left and right hemisphere of your brain is connecting and balancing. And that's when oftentimes you'll get these great ideas because you're receptive, right? And and then you tap into your zone of genius, and there's ways to access that really easily. And then you're creating in your flow state and just enjoying that feeling of timelessness. That's that flow
Mhm.
state is that beautiful place between discipline and surrender. And there's like, you can find the Tao, the middle ground, where you're just like in it fully, and all the greats from Michael Jordan to Bob Ross, like you witness their flow state. And so they're just reminding us what's possible. And we can all access that when we continue to choose creator consciousness over the old patterns of consuming.
I love how you highlighted what I witness and notice, and what I think has been one of the gifts of this past year. In fact, I was even feeling it before the pandemic hit, was how easy it is for us to consume through busyness. That's not
Hmm.
something that everybody thinks about. They think of material things, but what I have been, what I have witnessed, and I work with women, but is this seeking that external validation through of self-worth through the actions of the doing or one more certification. And I think it's even a shadow in the healer and the coach is, you know, the I like seeking that next thing to heal or that next thing to even learn sometimes.
Hmm.
um so yeah, it's very multi-layered. And as I'm hearing you speak, like you're quite the teacher of wisdom, it just in life. Like you've got the physical body and the subconscious and the energetic sovereignty and the creator consciousness. And I'm wondering if you're going to do a TED talk or
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, that excites me. I just look at this life has been like at a beautiful buffet, and I just attune to my intuition of what resonates most with me,
Mhm.
and what are the learnings, the lessons, and the blessings, and I just turn my reticular activation onto that. Like, what are my highest excitements, my interests, and those things appear, and then I take what resonates with me, practice it, embody it, find a level of mastery with it, and then I reap the benefits of that. And then it's like, cool, I get to share it now, you
So
know?
what tool do you use in that moment to discern or decide what you're going to put your intention to towards?
Hmm. Yeah. So anytime I think another great example is to use like consumption of information, right? Because this day and age, we are heavy consumers of information. There's just like information overload with the internet and with everything out there. And so it's easy to just get sucked into from one YouTube to just like book to all this information that you're absorbing externally without even noticing, like, is this in my highest? Does this feel good to my body? Is this intuitively really powerful, true information that can benefit me, that I need? And so um, and I feel like with everything that's going on in the world, noticing that everything we're seeing on these screens is actually filtered and controlled information, and knowing that can kind of allow, at least for me, to take space from it so that I can come back to it and reestablish a better relationship with those screens and that
Mhm.
information, and question where that's coming from and the narrative for it. And that's allowed me to take more space with myself in nature and in contemplation. And that's when I become more receptive to what I call tapping into cosmic Google. It's like straight from source, the information and the collective that's available to us anytime that we can access internally. And that's like one of the gifts that I've gained from taking space from screens.
Mhm.
And so um to answer your question, the Feel free to review
Yeah,
that.
what I heard you say, the question was what tools do you use, and what I heard you say
Mhm.
was you connect with your intuition, you'd use your body. So you're
Yep.
using some somatic methods to check in with your body on how is this feeling for me? And then you're also giving your permission to give yourself space.
Yep.
So that's what I heard you say, which is awesome. It's,
Yeah.
again, not seeking the external teacher, but the practice of leaning in, feeling to heal, right? Like leaning into the discomfort, leaning into all of the things, leaning into your body, noticing what's coming up for you, observing, witnessing, connecting with your intuition, and then giving yourself space to then witness and experience it.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think another great tool that I go to first, like in my Batman utility belt, is breath. It's just simple using one expansion breath of like inhaling like a balloon from the epicenter of your belly outward for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
And then you can even infuse that with your intention and then exhaling for 8 seconds to
Mm,
really all the way to empty to allow your nervous system to calm. So
mhm,
as you notice a fight or flight state ensuing and our attention goes up more into the mind, then you can literally take an elevator from the mind into the heart space, connecting those two in heart coherence so that the mind beautiful instrument for the heart. And you know those different operating systems because the mind's typically about survival or about like what can we get out of this situation, what's in it for me. And then you take that elevator ride and into the heart space, and this operating system is like, wow, look at everything I have to give,
mm,
and so what a different space to operate from. And when those are connected in heart coherence, then the mind is a beautiful instrument for creation and for
mm,
um, so that one breath is when you're presented with a stimuli, when you're getting hit with a trigger, or you can take that one breath to slow things down and
yeah.
come back into your heart space and notice, does this feel expansive? Does this feel like full body? Yes, like yes, this information feels true and it benefits me. Okay, I'll dive into it. Or is it, this feels really constrictive, this feels like it's going to take me on a roller coaster of distractions that I don't really need right now because my attention, I want it to be on this path of highest excitement and creating. And so that one breath can be a total game changer and change your entire life the more you use that one breath tool, coming out of fight or flight into rest and digest, noticing that you can slow down that whole process. And then you can begin to witness the mind go into all the like, thoughts of, oh, just put this band-aid on it, right? Like just go on, social media real quick, or all the things that the mind offers instead of just honoring what's there. And then checking in with, cool, I made this commitment, I'm going to carve out this time to create this new program or this new book, or share this idea in a video with
Mm,
others, and notice all the distractions and notice the resistance that comes up anytime we go to step into doing something great. That resistance that comes in front of our natural state of inner peace is showing us something. That's the way in which you can dance through that resistance. And that's why the laser focus method is so powerful, because it helps you recognize what I call the Pac-Man. It's like the Pac-Man program is like the, wanting to just consume, like
mhm,
just, all right, consume information, consume food, consume drinks, and noticing when that comes up and just allowing myself that one breath. And then, cool, where would my focus be most useful right now for my long-term fulfillment? And what is excitement? Because
mm,
just taking that moment to slow down allows you to remember, oh yeah, I want to create this. Oh yeah, I'm going to work on this project. Oh yeah. And that's a game changer, because then you start on that path and it just has a snowball effect. Like you're entering more flow states, you're creating more, and then you can create more space by cutting out the distractions for carving out more space to create.
And
It's
you're
fun.
experiencing it differently because what you
Mhm.
said is creating to enjoy the process of creating. So as I'm hearing you
Exactly.
speak, I'm thinking like there's a way to do that, and then there's a way to experience it.
Mhm.
And I want to invite you to share a little bit about your inner peace process, because I know that you do a lot of the work that you do with men and women is to help them release fear, anxiety, resistance. You've got the laser focus method to help people avoid procrastination, step into greater consciousness, live the life they want. But what I love that you add is with ease. And you've talked about joy, right? Joy is this bliss joy state. Not that it's always that way, but it is this more I'm in the process in my life of just really like, if I don't enjoy it, it's a no. Like I've done the leaning in and being like, okay, what am I resisting this? But now I know I've done enough of that to know that, and this is a huge practice by the way, but my intention right now is to be the dance of life, not the dancer, like to be in the joy of the process.
Mhm.
And so you've been talking about that. And I think ultimately we get to a point where that is really what we are seeking, is that time freedom, that joy in life, that quality of life, and inner peace. So tell me a little bit about this, the inner peace process. Who is that for? What does it look like? What are the results that people are getting from this?
Yeah. So the inner peace process is a very simple guided process for releasing and healing the deepest wounds, like the abandonment wound. This is the wound that was the lessons for me in my journey, and that actually inspired me to create the inner peace process. And, it's literally helps connect the dots through this process of, okay, I'm experiencing something uncomfortable. I'm noticing my mind want to offer these band-aids, right? And instead, I can choose this inner peace process, go into where this feeling of uncomfortability is showing up in the body. That gives us information. That gives us clues. If it's showing up at my neck as constriction, as tightness, then really going into that and just noticing those sensations from a place of neutrality and not needing to change it, just simply observing. And then that gives us intel. Oh, okay, where am I not fully expressing something or sharing my truth? And then from there, that there's likely an emotion or a feeling within that sensation. And so when we connect to that, it might be, I use the example of anger. So if we notice, wow, I'm experiencing some anger. Okay. When was the first time I experienced this feeling? And then your body already knows, it's so intelligent that it will give you a flashback, a memory, a time when you experienced that. And it's like prioritizing the healing for you. It's like, this is
Yeah.
where you need the most love, support, and safety right now. And it'll, show you a memory. For me, it was my 4-year-old, when my parents got divorced. And I remember very clearly the colored lipstick my mom had on and the smell of her leather coat as she was telling me that she was leaving because they got divorced. And so connecting again with that 4-year-old, like now as my current self, getting to reparent and hold sacred space for that little guy that was caught in this loop and this challenging experience and feeling these emotions that he didn't know what to do with. So he developed coping mechanisms and he developed a belief around, oh, I'm not good enough for love. I'm not good enough to keep the woman I love around, and that love
Mhm.
has to equal pain. And so, as soon as those decisions were made, then that creates that belief is going to show up in my experience throughout life. And for me, it would show up as, I'd fall in love and like my college sweetheart, and everything is going great. And then she would end up leaving me. And so after that happened a couple times, it was like, wow, why is this happening? Where is this coming from? And then connecting all those dots, realizing that, oh, this 4-year-old is still caught in that loop. He's still experiencing that and needs some support, some safety, and some love. And as I use this process to bring that to him and connect him, bring him integrated into the heart again. And it was like first time checking on him, he was like arms crossed and he was pissed, you know, he didn't want to, he was like, you abandoned me too, you know? And so,
Yeah.
and very valid. And so it was like through this process of connecting with him over time, over support, he was, you know, I remember one time I checked in and he was like, you know, look at what I'm creating on this like table, you know, and he was excited to show me what he was working on. And then I got to hold his hand and bring him along and get him caught up to speed to all the things we've accomplished, everything that's happened. And as I began bringing balance and that journey within through the inner peace process, noticing how everything shifted in my experience, then I could take a look and notice, oh, wow, I was actually responsible for these areas that I was very immature and pushing those levers away to
Mm-hmm.
recreate the familiarity and the belief that was created as a 4-year-old. So it's so fascinating. There's always like so much to learn and understand about ourselves through this process. That's I've just found a way to simplify it, and I guide people through it, and then they notice the shifts in their life that happen by doing this inner work. And it's amazing. Like boom, boom, boom. In 1 year, that's like when all my dreams started coming true.
Yeah.
After
Well,
doing that
there's no
work.
blocks
Yeah,
anymore. The energy,
exactly.
the creator conscious, the energy can just flow through. And
Exactly.
then there's always like another layer, but it's the energy's so spacious and dissipated that when it comes up, we just have the tools to witness it and
Hmm.
not make it about us and not make it,
Yep.
the all the beliefs that got us to where we are. So in a way, it's like it's just so interesting as I'm hearing you speak, like I'm getting this vision of like this, that wound itself that creates all these survivor strategies, which the survivor strategies serve us for. They're really good at hiding because
Hmm.
they led you down your path to being disciplined enough to be a health coach, to be a neurokinetic therapist, to do all this work that you've been doing. And then when we come back to that 4-year-old self, it's the interesting thing is as I'm hearing you speak, we realize that that deepest wound in a sense becomes our greatest gift, but
Yep.
really the the real truth is that it was never separate to begin with. It was
Yep.
the whole experience. So the real gift is in like holy, you said that's where it comes to energetic sovereignty. It's like
Mhm.
knowing what is yours and what doesn't serve you, but also there's another part to that of like wholly and completely embracing the experience in its wholeness and not separating out that wounded self from the truth of who you are, and just walking with that part of you and allowing it to unfold and realizing that your perception about it was really the shift that need to create
Mhm.
it to be created. And that
Absolutely.
feels like freedom. That's like,
Yeah.
oh, it sounds like really hard and like
Yeah.
so I'm speaking as I'm hearing myself speak, because I know that there are people that are thinking, God, I really want to feel free, and I really want to let go of self-doubt, and I really want to let go of abandonment and rejection, but I don't know if I want to do the work to get there. And
Hmm.
so what would you say to a person who's listening right now who may be feeling into that?
Yeah. Yeah. Every single time that you choose this inner work, like the inner peace process or your own version of going inward when the going gets tough, when the challenges are hard, instead of choosing to consume something externally, it's always worth it. That's where the gifts, the golden nuggets, the silver linings lie. Whereas if we choose the external consumption, that is perpetuating the suffering. That is perpetuating this feeling of like always trying to find your comfort zone. But even your comfort zone becomes very uncomfortable because this energy wants to be expressed. It
Mm-hmm.
wants to be. And so the beautiful thing through that inner peace process is by connecting these dots, giving love, support, and safety to where it's needed most within you, you can literally witness as that energy begins to unravel, begins to release and be expressed. And then then you get to notice how that shows up in your experience, in your reality, of this new feeling of freedom and liberation. And then I offer a take-home version of that. So as I guide people through it, then they have, their journaling version of that allows them to go through these really easy steps. And so then they're reminded that they're their own greatest healer. Like each
Yeah.
of us is our own greatest healer. I'm not your healer. I simply just get to guide, to help show you where love, support, and safety is needed most within you. And then you're able to do that on your own, as you always were. It's just a simplistic version and way of doing that. And then it gets really exciting because you gain so many golden nuggets on that, so many new epiphanies and revolutions about yourself. You understand self so much more that when the going gets tough, when challenges come, when you get triggered, it's like it's exciting to almost lean into it. I'm like, wow, this person was able to trigger me. This is interesting. Like, I want to take this through my inner peace process and discover what's here to be revealed and healed. And that is exciting. That's like when I get hit with curveballs and challenges, it's like, wow, something amazing is going to come from this, because this is
Yeah.
really
So I've been in the practice of uh, calling triggers now activations, because I've been in
Mhm.
that feeling of like, for me, the energy of trigger feels very much like trauma responsive, and activation. Now that I've done the inner work and I feel in a more empowered place, I'm like I was feeling your energy into that. It's like, wow, like now I get to, lean into this new thing. And you answered my next question, which was, as we're speaking about not seeking external validation, yet here you and I are both coaches holding that space for the support and the healing of a person, but teaching them to be their own master, their own embodied healer. And so I heard that you share that you have a take home tools for them to take after they work with you, which I think, this podcast is the embodied healing self.
Mhm.
That's what it's about. It's really, it's the intuition, it's the body wisdom, it's the energetic sovereignty, it's inner peace process. That sounds amazing. And really just tapping into a remembrance, like you
Mhm.
said, just that remembrance of ourselves and in our wholeness. So
Absolutely.
it's been wonderful having you in this space. I could probably do this for another hour. And you and I
Mhm.
both have
Yeah.
life to attend to. Where can people find you? You just mentioned that you co-authored a book. Can you please share all your social media, your book, any upcoming courses that you're offering?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's easy. I love to connect via Instagram. That's charlesclay.coach. I love to connect through Facebook. If any of this resonates with you, feel free to just reach out, send laser focus method or inner peace process, whatever resonates, or just say hi. That's a great way to connect. I love connecting, and if it feels resonant, then offer a quick call to see how I can support you. And even if I can't, I'm happy to share other resources
Mm.
that wherever you're at on your journey. It's just important that we don't feel like we have to do this alone. And so you can also check out charlesclay.coach online website. We're updating that and have all kinds of new offerings there as well. And email connect@charlesclay.coach. And yeah, a lot of great stuff coming. There's
Retreats.
yes,
Are you getting back into that yet? I just had
yes,
to cancel my retreat in Peru because they
yes.
had a 14-day quarantine, but I see that you're doing retreats. And then what's the name of the book?
Yeah, and the Better Business book was my first co-authored published book, and it was such a fun project. There's a whole story of how that fell in my lap too, for another time. And it's basically, instead of having 100 books on business in your library, having to go through all these pages to find the golden nuggets in it, this is 100 entrepreneurs sharing their greatest gifts all in one book. So you get, all these golden nuggets in one book. And my chapter is on vacation vibration. And it's that experience that we get every time we open up and allow ourselves time and the intention for novelty, and how we can incorporate that into our lives more and into our business. And if it's not fun, it's not sustainable. So
That's the reason I'm an entrepreneur. Like, my
yeah.
love language is quality time, and I've been sitting with, like, how do I spend quality time with self? And so
Mhm.
it's been an interesting year for me. We travel a lot internationally, and just we were traveling almost once a month actually. And so luckily I love where I live, but I've really been sitting with, like, to me the word, like, I was sitting with, like, what does luxury even mean to me? And it means choice. It means
Mhm.
freedom to choose my quality of life. It doesn't mean having, like, this super fancy car, but I have the choice to have it if I want to.
Mhm.
But my word for the year is prosperity. So I was really sitting
Yeah.
with, what does prosperity mean to me? It's all of the things that I've been learning. Health coaching is where I started. Nourishment, like, it's nourishment of food, nourishment of water, nourishment of love, nourishment of currency and financial wealth, and nourishment of receiving connections like this, so that I can then be a spring of water, like a spring that can just,
Mhm.
overflow a little, give a little, but it's coming from a place of being fulfilled, and my cup is full. And then having the luxury of choice in how my kids are 15 and 12. Like, it's fast. I mean, what do I
Mhm.
want these next, few years to be like? So I
Beautiful.
think and you're stepping into that with your little Sophia. So it's
Mhm.
wonderful.
Yes.
So I want to stay in integrity with time. I know that we both have other commitments. I've really, really enjoyed. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Really am so grateful. And your book and your retreats and your method. And you also shared a generous discount for the listeners, which I will drop in the show notes, on your laser focus
Absolutely.
method. So thank you for that, for those interested. And yeah, is there a little nugget of wisdom you'd love to leave the listeners with? If there was
Yeah.
just one little thing, like, as you're looking back at your life, like, what would that be?
I've done things the hard way often. And there was, a time when I thought I had to do everything on my own. And so I just want to leave everyone with this message, that you are not alone. You don't have to go through all this alone. And if you feel like you need help, have the courage to reach out, connect, and then follow your intuition to those that can support you on your path.
100%. That's really the purpose of this podcast, is to just create the space for people like you to share what you do, so that when it resonates with somebody, they know where to go and they know where to seek aligned support. So thank you for sharing that, especially as we're moving forward in this collective right now. There's this huge energy calling us to really collaborate, but it's in a new way. It's in a very, I don't have the word for it yet, but I don't know. It's like, I just imagine us all, like, holding hands and walking forward, but with no, it's in a, like, in a very unified way, where there's no real male, female, color, gender. Like, it's all just an energy of kind of just gracefully moving forward, receiving and allowing, and just this, like, flow of, receiving and giving and
Yes.
sharing and nurturing and growing and expanding and contracting and all the things. So
Yep. We're
yeah,
all walking each other home.
that's right.
I appreciate you and
Thank you.
everything you do. Thank you for sharing your gifts. And yeah, it's an honor.
Thank you so much, Charles. And for everybody listening, I will drop all of the links in the show notes for you to find him. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.